Well, folks, everyone has an opinion about the Trump indictment, lawyers and non lawyers alike, and I've heard a lot of the opinions. I've read almost every single op ed piece on this, and I am very surprised that almost everybody seems to be missing an extremely obvious and the most dangerous argument against Donald Trump. I'm going to talk about that after I quickly summarize where we stand so I can save you as much time as possible so we can minimize the amount of time that we have to talk about Donald Trump and we could go back to learning how to build wealth. So, first, where do we stand? And then, second, what is everybody missing? Because there's a very key argument that everybody is missing. Bragg told us about it, and everybody is missing it. He didn't highlight it very well. And that's because, quite frankly, I think Bragg doesn't know how to put together a very good legal case. I think he's throwing spaghetti against the wall, but there's a piece of spaghetti that might actually stick. So, first, where do we stand? Ooh, here it comes, Sean Connery. Stand by. All right, here we go. On the left, people say, this is the left. Okay, I'm gonna have to signpost this every time. On the left, people say Donald Trump paid $30,000 to pay off the National Enquirer, who ended up paying off a doorman who had a story alleging that Donald Trump had a child from an affair. That child part of the story, we don't know if it's true or not. The left says that Donald Trump then paid $150,000 and another $130,000 to silence two women with which he cheated, which of course he denies. The left is arguing that justice is now finally being served, that no one is above the law. And don't worry, even though Manhattan 76 to 78% of the time, Hillary Biden votes Democratic, we are confident Donald Trump will get a fair election. The left also says that New York City is the financial capital of the world, so we must prosecute financial crimes. In fact, in a New York Times, which obviously leans left, opinion editorial by the former chief assistant district attorney, who leans left, for Manhattan, and the left-leaning special counsel, which means attorney, to the House Judiciary Committee on the first impeachment trial against Trump, which means they lean left. They just wrote an op-ed saying, hey, come on. Donald Trump is the 30th person we are prosecuting this year for falsifying documents. So don't worry, this is not a political witch hunt. This is just what we do. That's what the left is saying, okay? The right is saying the following. The statute of limitations has expired, although some New York state laws have actually potentially extended those statutes of limitations. Then they say this is a political witch hunt. And quite frankly, it probably is not a political witch hunt anymore. It is now a witch trial. Yeah, okay, so it's a witch hunt that has evolved into a witch trial. Others say the state can't prosecute this. Donald Trump was a federal candidate. Some people who are a little bit more torn, like the left-leaning economists, say this is a very weak case. Not only is this a weak case, but it creates more divisiveness in America. It casts more doubt on the judicial system by Republicans. And The Economist, calling this a mistake, is not even an American publication. They're from England. The Wall Street Journal, and they're left-leaning. The Wall Street Journal, a right-leaning paper, calls this a, quote, novel interpretation, to which, of course, the left-leaning opinion editorialists in the New York Times say, this is not novel, this is normal. Even CNN says this is super weak. Thanks, Sean McGuire. Statement of facts, okay? It's important. The statement of facts, basically a whole strung together story about how Donald Trump, at least in part, knew that he was paying people off. In fact, in a surreptitiously recorded statement, Donald Trump asked if he should pay $150,000 in cash, essentially to pay off woman number one, who is Karen McDougal. She was a Playboy model. She was once deemed number two to Pamela Anderson. In other words, she's very attractive. Good for her. Donald Trump, instead of paying cash, ultimately settled for paying in check because that's what Michael Cohen, who now has turned on Donald Trump, recommended. And Michael Cohen has gone to jail, to prison, for being convicted of campaign finance violations. So these are the arguments we hear. We hear the statement of facts. We don't have to rehash all of this. We know this. The last thing I'd like to say, and then I want to get into what everybody is missing. The last thing is just a reminder that this is an argument being made about the potential violation of a misdemeanor or by violating the falsifying of business records. That is a misdemeanor crime. But when it is used in a way to cover up another crime, that misdemeanor elevates to a Class C felony, the lowest available felony, which Manhattan has a history of demoting 50% of their felonies to misdemeanors and then only convicting 50% of the remaining felonies, which means they only have about a 25% felony conviction rate. With that said, it gives you some good odds for Donald Trump. With that said, obviously, the argument is being made that this case is about hush money payments. The problem is, hush money payments are not necessarily fraudulent in themselves. Hush money payments are not against the law in themselves. If an employee leaves your company and they could potentially talk crap about you because you make racist jokes in the locker room, then it is okay to say, hey, if you agree not to say anything about the company, would you be willing to take $10,000 and sign an agreement to that fact? That is normal. That is what happens every single day in America. However, Mr. Bragg makes the argument that these hush money payments are actually defrauding voters. That is very important. It is still not, though, the argument that everyone is missing. That's because the argument that hush money payments defraud voters is weak. I'm going to explain why it is weak. First, it does not defraud anyone of money or property. That makes it almost a potential victimless crime. Now, the argument can be made that no, Kevin, the voters are the victims. The voters are the victims because Donald Trump conspired to promote his candidacy via unlawful means, covering up the fact that he hid disclosures that should have been made to voters. They had a right to know about those cover-ups, and they did not. Had they, maybe Donald Trump would not have become president. Okay, that's the argument. But that argument is potentially weak. It's weak because Donald Trump could easily say, I didn't cover up those stories because of politics. Those stories would have gotten me more votes. Prove otherwise, I would have looked like a top G and I would have gotten more votes had people known I got to have sex with the number 2 Playboy model of the 90s. That's an argument he can make. So his defense could very simply be, I wanted to cover up the story because I didn't want my wife to know about these potential affair rumors, which I didn't have the affair, but I wouldn't want my wife to think there was even a chance of them. That is the easiest defense Donald Trump can have here, okay? But listen to this, and then we're going to move back to talking finance. Listen to this. This is the big piece of the puzzle that's missing. Alvin Bragg threw a piece of spaghetti against the wall that I think is very strong. He threw a piece of spaghetti against the wall, and there is a weakness to it, but it is strong. He referenced the fact that it is possible Michael Cohen and Donald Trump falsified tax filings. That, folks, is a crime in the state of New York. Now you don't even have to worry about federal law. You don't even have to worry that Donald Trump was not a state candidate. He was a federal candidate. You don't even have to worry about that. You just have to worry about, is it possible that the falsification of business records helps cover up phony tax filings? That piece of spaghetti, I think, is the potential Achilles heel for Donald Trump. Now, I still don't think that is very strong because here's how I would potentially argue defending that. You could make the argument that, listen, Donald Trump simply said, I paid Michael Cohen, call it $300,000. And if with that $300,000, he decided he wanted to make a business expense and pay off Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal and pay off a doorman, then maybe he did that in the duty of his job. That was his decision. He went to jail for that. That was not my decision. I did not guide him to do that. That was all him. That's Donald Trump's defense here. But Alvin Bragg can take a jurisdictional argument on the case of fraud of the tax system. That is probably the strongest piece that Bragg has. Let me quickly draw this, and then we're going to end the Trump segment because people keep telling me, Kevin, you're a financial advisor. Talk finances. Pitch us on your courses on building your wealth, link down below, or life insurance you can get in as little as 5 minutes, or 12 free stocks. Give us your paid promotions. Don't talk politics. That's what people keep telling me, but I'm going to do it anyway. So what do I have over here? Because I think I have a good point. Watch this, okay? If this is Trump's business right here, and Trump hires employees, well, employees sit within the company, correct? Well, by definition, independent contractors are not employees of the business. If Michael Cohen has a business here and Donald Trump pays for legal services, for whatever those services may be, if those legal services go to Michael Cohen, those legal services, call it what you want, they are income. They are income. Michael Cohen was an independent contractor, though that is income for legal services. Simple. If Michael Cohen decided then to spend that money on prostitutes for himself, he could do that. If he decided to spend that money on hush money for Stormy Daniels, woman one, woman two, doorman, he can do that. If he thinks that's going to help do a better job for Donald Trump, he can do that. If he thinks buying a private jet with Donald Trump's money helps, he can do that. Now, Donald Trump might look and go, you're fired because you're wasting money and you're not performing. But all of these things would be the decision of Michael Cohen. And that is the defense that Donald Trump would have to go with. That there is a decisional barrier here. That Donald Trump is basically saying, look, you run the show. It's on you. Whatever decisions you make as an independent contractor are your responsibility. That's probably the best defense here because that kills the tax fraud argument, in my opinion. Now, stand by for the close of this video. Look, obviously, this, whether you are left or right, is a politically motivated attack. Democrats are loving this. Republicans are loving this too because Donnie T is getting more airtime and more donations than ever before. Donnie T, before this indictment, was sitting in a corner. Nobody was paying attention to Donnie T. People are like, ooh, Nikki Haley. Ooh, Ronnie D. Ooh, Gavin Newsom. What do you have now? Donnie everywhere. Everyone's talking about Donnie. So if you're a Democrat and you're happy about this indictment, even though this is probably just going to end up as a stupid misdemeanor, even if Donald Trump gets convicted and he's going to get a slap on the wrist fine, it's not going to be it's going to be meaningless. If anything, it's just going to propel him into the presidency, not get him away from the presidency. Democrats, I'm sorry. You should not be cheering that this happened. Republicans should probably be the ones cheering that this has happened because it basically put Donald Trump back at the top for them. Just saying. That's just the reality of it. I don't have a horse in this race. I don't really care. I just want to provide insight in the middle. I ran for governor in California. I ran as somebody who was in the middle, 51-49. And we really don't need to go into what direction that 1% is because it really just doesn't matter. We're so far in the middle. I called myself, I'm not going to say it, what I called myself. JFK style. That's what I'll limit it there. Anyway, okay? Very, very in the middle. I lost. I almost got 1 million votes and I won San Francisco, but I still lost. And that's why I'm here, still making wonderful YouTube videos. Although I think I would have still made YouTube videos in office. I would have figured it out. But anyway, that's my take. I hope you enjoyed my take on Donnie T. Now we got some other things to talk about. Thank you very much.